Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about 26 books that I am super excited to read in the year 2026. Now these books are not ones that are new releases. I'm actually going to be doing another separate video that is going to go through all the new releases that I'm excited for next year. But this one is for books that are already out, and there are a few that I don't actually physically own yet, so I will have to pick up a few of those, hopefully going into next year so that I can read them. Alright, first up we're going to talk about fantasy, which is one of my absolute favorite genres. I have always had a great love for fantasy. It is actually what I write as well. I love fantasy. There always is an element of magic in my own personal stories, and I love getting to read stories that have that element of magic in them as well. There's something about being in a completely different world that sometimes has different languages and different people and different types of creatures and a completely different system of how the world runs, that it is just so unique and fun, and I'm super excited to get to jump into some new fantasy for 2026. The first one I'm excited about is Ember Gold, and this is by, I'm not sure if she pronounces it Rochelle or Rachel Nelson, but this is one that I'm really looking forward to. This one is a story about a girl who has been trying to stay safe from dragons her whole life, and then suddenly finds herself with a dragon, and that dragon is not at all what he has been presented as in her life and made out to be. And so it looks like it's going to be a really intriguing story. There's betrayal, there's adventure, there is magic, and of course dragons, and I absolutely love a good story with dragons in it. The next one I'm looking forward to is Maiden of Candlelight and Lotuses, and this is by Anastasis Blythe. And this is part of a series. I think it's actually the prequel to the actual series that starts. And this is about a girl who grows up on a farm and suddenly finds herself in a magic academy, and all the things that happen through this adventure that she suddenly is thrust into the middle of. And on the back it says, it doesn't take long for her to realize she's 10 years behind, her magic is weak, and she is in way over her head. But Leanna is determined to work hard if it means a chance at a better life for her family. She just wasn't counting on being noticed by the handsome crown prince, a warrior in training said to have fire magic, powerful enough to decimate entire armies. Then it goes on to say that everything is not what it seems, and there's somebody doing some sinister things around the academy that's going to put her in a interesting predicament. So I'm excited to find out what happens in this one, and if I really love it, there's a whole series that now I can just jump right into. The next one is Ignite by Kara Swanson, and this looks really intriguing. This one's about a main character who is actually a phoenix, which I am super interested to find out more about this because I really love phoenixes. I love the idea of them and how we can rise from the ashes and become greater and better. So there's a lot of analogy there for us in our personal lives. So I've always been intrigued with phoenixes. They're also just really cool mythological creatures, and I'm excited to see a story that the character is actually a phoenix. And in the front cover it says, can Mara survive in a world where the fire in her veins is worth killing for? Very intriguing, and looking forward to this one. The next one I have is The Story Peddler, and this is by Lindsay A. Franklin, and this is about a person who is able to, I think, weave stories. It says, selling stories is a deadly business. Tonwin doesn't just tell stories, she weaves them into crystallized sculptures that sell for more than a few bits. But the only way to escape the control of her cruel mentor and claw her way from poverty is to set her sights on something grander, becoming royal storyteller to the king. And what really seems to up the stakes is it says that during her final story peddling tour, a tale of treason spills from her hands, threatening the king himself. So now there's a whole lot of stuff that happens with this main character, and adventure, danger, all the stakes. It looks like it's going to be a really cool and fun time. I'm excited to read this one, and it is the first of, I believe, a trilogy. I think, yes, it's the Weaver trilogy. So there's going to be 2 other books, if I really enjoy this one, that I can dive into. And the last fantasy I have for 2026 is Heart of Red, Blood of Blue, and this is by Rebecca Belliston. And this one says, a girl on the run, a kingdom to save, and on the back it says, can a girl who started the war find a way to end it? Another action-adventure, action-packed story. It looks really interesting. I've heard really good things about this one. I've seen some good reviews. There's some other people who have read it that I've seen in the YouTube community that have said that it's really good, great story. So I'm excited to look into this one. And I do believe it's a standalone, which is something that you can't find like super often in the fantasy world. They do tend to come in series. So it's kind of cool to have what I think is going to be a standalone. And now moving on into the kind of more mystery, suspense, thriller genre, I have several books that I'm excited for 2026. The first one is Night Falls on Predicament Avenue by Jamie Jo Wright, and this one is kind of her classic telling where it's a dual timeline situation. So there's usually something going on in a past timeline and a current timeline, and they have bearing on each other throughout the story. It's not time crossing, but you do get that dual timeline. And her stories are just so super atmospheric and fun. I love them. I've read several of her books and can't wait to read more in 2026. And on the back, it says, as the walls of the house at Predicament Avenue reveal their hidden truths, two women, generations apart, discover that fear and foreboding are no respecters of time. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one. The next one is The Other Sister by Jessica R. Patch, and this looks super intriguing. It says she thought she was the only one lying about her identity until she stepped into her sister's life. Jessica R. Patch writes suspense thrillers, and her stories are usually pretty intense, and I have really liked her writing so far. I'm excited to see what this one has in it. She's very good at weaving a fantastic mystery, so I'm sure this will be just as great as her other books. The next one is Crisscross by C.C. Warrens. I have been wanting to read this series for a very long time. I think I originally heard about this series a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and I finally bought the first one, I believe earlier this year or late last year. Just have not had a chance to get into these, and there are, I believe, 5 books in this series. They're Holly novels, so you are following the same main character throughout all of the books, but these look fantastic. They have really great reviews. They look like a lot of fun, and I have heard too in some of the reviews that there's quite a bit of humor in the story, which is fun. So we've got the darkness, but we've also got the humor element, and excited for this for sure. Next one is Girl Lost by Kate Angelo. I actually had this on, I think, one of my TBRs earlier this year, but just didn't get a chance to read it. I ran out of time in the month, and I wasn't able to circle back around to it. Now, Kate Angelo, I've read one of her other books and absolutely loved it. This one looks like it's going to be pretty fantastic, and it's got a blurb on the front from Colleen Coble. It says, Kate Angelo delivers a powerhouse of a thriller with heart, intense, gripping, and brilliantly written, and I have no doubts. Her other book was so good, and so I'm excited to get to read this. Another one we have is Deadly Melody by Connie Mann. Now, what caught me about this one is the fact that it's a thriller and there's a musical element involved. And as a musician myself, that just immediately reached out and intrigued me. And it says, the Martinellis were the closest thing to family Kat Johnson ever had. That's why she ran, to protect them from her threatening past. The orphan child of classical musicians, she's been lying low in Nashville and performing at the No Name Cafe. When Kat reluctantly agrees to attend the wedding of her beloved foster sister, the plan is simple. Make a quick appearance at the Martinellis, then disappear again. Instead, she's thrust headlong into a nightmare. It goes on from there, and it looks amazing. I'm excited for this one. Next, with just a couple of books, we have classics. I do want to try to read a couple of classics next year. I did not get that done this year, even though I was hoping to. So I have a couple that I have identified on my 2026 list that I would love to get to. The first one is this Sherlock Holmes collection, and I just love this book. It's got that really like soft cover and kind of like, I don't know, pages that make it look a little more vintage or something. And it just looks so good. I have been wanting to get back into some Sherlock Holmes. So Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is on my list for 2026. Another one I want to read is this book. It's Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson, but it is the Japanese version. So this is one of the books that I put on my 2026 list because I want to really focus on my Japanese this year in my studies. And I've read Kidnapped in the English version and loved it. I've read it multiple times. It's one of my favorite classics. And I thought, what better than to try to read it in Japanese? It's not going to be easy. I know it's not going to be easy. It's probably going to take me a good chunk of the year to get all the way through it. But I'm up for the challenge and I'm excited about it, and I'm hoping to learn new words, new kanji, and I don't think this can't help but increase my abilities in Japanese and progress my studies while also getting to have a fun time with it. Next, we have some historical fiction. My undergraduate degree was actually in history, and I love reading fiction that takes place during historical time periods. So I have several books that I'm excited for 2026 to read that are historical fiction. The first one is A Song in the Dark, and this is by Kimberly Woodhouse. This looks really good, really interesting. It takes place during World War II. But what's cool about this is, again, just like with the book a little bit earlier I talked about, there is a musical element to it. The main character in this is actually a blind virtuoso pianist, and she gets caught in the midst of the war and in all of the things that happened during that horrible time period. And so I am very curious about what happens in this and how she navigates all of that. I'm sure it's going to be a pretty intense read, but I'm also really looking forward to reading it. The next one is Beyond All Dreams, and this is by Elizabeth Camden. I read her novel Against the Tide, and it was so amazingly well done. I loved it. It was one of my favorite books of 2025, which you will get to probably see me talk about that in another video. The main character in this is actually a map librarian in the Library of Congress, which is part of what drew me to this, because as a book lover and as someone who used to work in a library, I thought it would be really cool to read this book. But she's leading a quieter life, but then kind of ends up in the middle of some secrets and some peril and danger and all those things. So I'm excited to see what happens in this story. And we've been talking so much that my camera battery actually died, so I had to go replace that. Back into our historical fiction now. The next one is Born of Gilded Mountains, and this is by Amanda Dykes. And I have never read anything by Amanda before, but I'm looking forward to this one. This says A Lost Treasure, A Riddled Quest, The Healing Power of Friendship. And this takes place in 1948. So not too far distant past, but just a little bit in the past. Looks very interesting because it's historical, but it appears there's also a mystery component to it, and have heard really good things about this novel. Looking forward to jumping in. Next we have Eden Brook by Julie Ann Donaldson. This one I've heard fantastic things about, and this one has the regular book in it, and it also has a prequel novelette in the end here that was also included in this special edition. So that's really cool. But this takes place, I believe, in the Regency time period. Let's see what it says. It says Marian Daventry will do anything to escape the boredom of Bath and the amorous attentions of an unwedded suitor. When an invitation arrives from her twin sister Cecily to join her at a sprawling country estate, she jumps at the chance, thinking she'll be able to relax and enjoy her beloved English countryside while her sister snags the handsome heir of Edenbrook. Marianne finds that even the best laid plans can go awry. And this one's a historical romance, and I've heard that the banter between the female and male lead is just fantastic, and their dialogue is amazing. So excited to look into this. I don't know a ton about it, and I'm kind of okay with that because I want to go in a little blind to this one and just let the story happen and see where it takes me. Another one is The Sound of Light by Sarah Sundin. This is the third book in a little bit of an interconnected sort of series that she wrote about that also takes place during World War II. This series has been amazing. Each one has been taking place in a different country, so you're seeing a different view of the war and what is happening and how it is affecting the people during that time period. And it looks like this one takes place in Denmark, and Sweden is also mentioned on here as well, so it looks like we're going to get that perspective of the war. Her writing is extremely powerful, her character development is amazing, and her stories are very moving, so I'm looking forward to this one. And then I do have a couple of other ones that I don't physically own yet, but that I would like to read in 2026. One of those is Sense and Suitability by Pepper Basham, and that one is historical, like with a bit of Sense and Sensibility woven in from what I can tell. looks like it's going to be really, really good and can't wait to read that. I have read another one of her books and really enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to this one. And then the other one is A Rumored Fortune by Joanna Davidson Politano. Now, I've read one of her other books and it was fantastically done. I thought it was really, really good. The character development, the historical elements, the atmosphere of the story itself was just very neat. And she had an element of mystery in that one. I believe it's going to be the same with A Rumored Fortune, where there's an element of mystery set in a historical time period. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we are on to our last group of books. And these are kind of, it's a little bit of a catch-all of general fiction, contemporary, romance, kind of all bundled together. And these are the ones that I'm looking forward to read in 2026. The first one is Between the Sound and the Sea by Amanda Cox. And this one says, every family has its secrets. Josephina, or Joey Harris, wouldn't mind if her family still had a few of their own after a lawsuit tarnishes their name. When an opportunity opens to become a temporary keeper of a decommissioned lighthouse on a North Carolina island, she takes the opportunity to escape the scrutiny of her small town to oversee its restoration. Soon, Joey discovers strange notes tucked deep in the crevices of the lighthouse's old stone walls, pages torn from a keeper's log recounting harrowing rescues at sea. When things start to go amiss on the island, locals are convinced that it is the ghost of the lighthouse keeper and his daughter who were lost at sea during World War II. So this looks really cool and kind of a contemporary but historical blend where we have historical elements feeding into this present day life. And I just think that's really fun, having a lighthouse and having all these secrets in this lighthouse. And so very much looking forward to this one. This next one is a contemporary romance, and it is The Second Story Bookshop by Denise Hunter. And this one drew my attention because it is a bookshop. As a book lover, I have a weakness for things about books and things about bookshops. So if you're going to have that in a story, I'm already interested. I have read a couple of other novels by Denise Hunter and did enjoy those. So this would be the third one that I will be reading by her. Her stories are usually just very sweet, fun, and fast-paced romances. And usually by the end, you're just left feeling really good. So I'm excited to get into another one of her stories. The next one is Indigo Isle by T.I. Lowe. And this looks super interesting. And I'll read just a little bit off the back cover. Sunny Bates left South Carolina 15 years ago and never looked back. Now she's a successful Hollywood location scout who travels the world finding perfect places for movie shoots. Home is where she lands, and between her busy schedule and dealing with her boss's demands, she has little time to think about the past, until her latest gig lands her a stone's throw from everything she left behind. So what's really cool about this is it's kind of a unique premise where she's a location scout for Hollywood. I mean, that sounds really intriguing, but this time her location scouting is going to bring her back home, it sounds like, and where she's going to need to confront the past. And so looking forward to this. This one is actually, I believe, a Christie Award winner for, I think this year. If not this year, then it was last year. So I'm very much looking forward to reading this story. The next one is The Summer of Yes by Courtney Walsh. I have read several books by Courtney Walsh and I have enjoyed every single one of them. She does such a great job with her romances, and so I'm looking forward to this one. I don't know that this one is actually a romance. I think this one's more of a story of friendship. It says, sometimes you're so busy writing other people's stories that you lose the plot of your own. This wasn't how Kelsey Worthington's day was supposed to go. She wasn't supposed to be picking up Starbucks for her smarmy boss. She wasn't supposed to get hit by a car that jumped the curb. And she certainly wasn't supposed to wake up in a hospital room next to Georgina Tate, the legendary matriarch of New York City businesswomen. Kelsey and Georgina couldn't be more opposite. Kelsey's a dreamer, a writer who questions her own skill. And Georgina is a confident businesswoman whose years of shouldering her way into boardrooms and making her voice heard have made her far too outspoken for the faint of heart. But now, when Georgina's failing kidneys force her to face some big regrets about the way she's lived her life, the two women recognize they share a common thread. Maybe it's time to confront a few things. They must ask themselves, what if I said yes to everything I always said no to? With Georgina as her companion, Kelsey soon finds herself doing things she's never done before. Eating street food, swimming in the ocean, matchmaking for Georgina with the help of Georgina's handsome son, and writing her own romance, both in book form and in real life. So begins the summer of yes. So it looks like it's a little bit of everything. It's going to have friendship, it looks like, between these two women, and also elements of romance possibly for both of them. And I do like this about Courtney Walsh, where she weaves in this extra layer into her books that really looks at certain deep things in our lives that are things that sometimes people struggle with or people confront, and she explores these different themes in her books, and it's always so very well done. So I'm looking forward to this, and it looks like this one's an exploration of regrets and about doing some things that maybe you haven't always made the time for or the space for in life. So the summer of yes, saying yes to the things that have always said no to previously. And then we have Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. Now this is a best-selling novel that I have had my eyes on for a while now. This one I believe is more of just a general fiction. It looks like it's going to be one of those books that really digs in deep and is probably a pretty emotional read. And I am just getting this from the things that I have read about it and the things that I have seen on the summary itself. And it says, in this poignant novel inspired by a true story, two families generations apart are forever changed by a heartbreaking injustice. And I won't read the whole thing, but I'll read this section actually towards the end, because this is really what this story is diving into and looking at. It says it's based on one of America's most notorious real-life scandals in which Georgia Tan, director of a Memphis-based adoption organization, kidnapped and sold poor children to wealthy families all over the country. So this takes a look at how these families were impacted through the eyes of the main characters in this particular book. And I know this one's going to be emotional. Like, you get a feeling about these things. I can tell this is probably going to be a book that makes me cry. So I'm really looking forward to this one, but I know it's going to be an emotional read. And the last one on my books to read in 2026 is Truth is a Whisper by Mandy Blake. I have heard great things about Mandy Blake's writing. I have never read any of her novels, and so I want to give one of them a try and see what I think. But it is a contemporary romance and looks really, really interesting. And like I said, I've heard such good things about her as an author that I am all for discovering new authors and their books and cannot wait to read that. So that is one that I will need to purchase or borrow at a library or something like that in order to read it. But looking forward to reading Truth is a Whisper by Mandy Blake. And we made it! That is 26 books that I would like to read in 2026. I can't believe we are almost to the start of a new year, but I am so excited for all the amazing stories that I will get to read in that new year, and can't wait to take you along for that journey. What are some books that you're excited to read for 2026? Please definitely let me know in the comments below. I read all of those and try to respond to as many as possible, and I'm excited to hear about what you are excited for in the new year. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate you all so very much. And as always, remember to keep following your dreams and believing in the magic of this thing called life. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.